welcome back to your Bachelorette recap. I'm Elena.
I'm Amanda.
And today we are covering part 2 of week 5 because we had a double episode this week. Okay, so let's get right into it.
Pretty juicy.
A lot happened. So we revisit the episode with Kenny and Lee. This was after they told Rachel their sides of the story. She basically has to choose who she believes now. And it goes back with Kenny going off on Lee. He's pissed. He's calling him names.
It was bad.
He was talking about, like, going to see his grave, and it was intense.
It was a little much.
Yeah. So Rachel eventually comes back after all the smack talk, and she decides to send Lee home, and she tells Kenny, well, I don't want to give you the rose just yet. I want to spend more time with you today and see where it goes. They go to escape in the helicopter because they're not going to be left on the island like Lee. And Kenny says, oh, wait a minute, let me go back. So Kenny's...
Dude should have stayed.
Yeah, she's like, I'm kind of mad that he wouldn't just, like, go with me and spend this time with me because they have limited time. And Kenny, well, basically says nothing to Lee that he hasn't said before.
Yeah.
Just, like, getting it off his chest, I guess, what he wants to say.
When Kenny was going off on Lee, Lee was like, Jesus loves you. And he's like, what?
He just presses buttons. So he walks back to the helicopter, and Rachel's, kind of mad because she's like, this is our time together. They leave, and they find a place to kind of sit and talk. And she goes, are you always like that? Do you have a short fuse? Because she's worried, what if he goes off on me in our relationship, And he's like, no, I don't have a short fuse. I'm actually very, emotionally vulnerable in relationships. So when talking about how emotionally vulnerable he is, he talks about how loving he would be in a relationship, how, he'd be there for her. And basically, she believes him. She thinks he's genuine. She trusts him. That's why she chose him over Lee. And she decides to give him the rose. So he gives... So he's safe. After they show that, they show another clip of Kenny talking to his daughter on FaceTime, and these are always the saddest scenes because he's always crying and saying, like, I miss you, and his daughter's like, but you should be happy,
Yeah,
so
she was really, mature for her age. She's like, I just want you to be happy. If she makes you happy, I want you to stay and pursue it,
Yeah, but of course he was sad because he doesn't want to be away from her.
So then we come to the rose ceremony, and before the ceremony, Joe's telling Matt, oh, she's awesome, and don't count me out. He's gonna be the last one standing, and just going on and on about,
He's the best.
Yeah, so then it makes you think, uh-oh, what's coming up?
Why is he being shown so much?
So, Josiah was talking in an interview that he was talking about Adam and Adam Jr. And he says, who wants somebody who brings in a Michael Myers creepy doll with them? I thought that was funny. Okay, so the men who get the rose are Dean, Eric, Peter, Adam, Alex, and Matt. And of course, Will and Kenny and Brian all got the rose on their dates. So that means that Josiah, Anthony, and Lee are all gone. They gone. They go home. And Josiah is pretty upset about it, and he's like, what is wrong with her? Something's wrong with her brain.
Yeah, he's just trashing her and the guys.
Yeah. So do you want to do the honors and crossing off?
They gone.
After the rose ceremony, they are now in Copenhagen, and Eric finally got his one-on-one date.
Finally.
He's very excited about that, like a little kid. It was kind of cute. He was saying how he's looking for a miracle. So at first we didn't understand what he meant by that, but later on you'll kind of get into it. Anyways, they were on a small little boat rowing through the little water.
They were sightseeing all the pretty architecture.
Yeah, so he asks her how many kids she wants, and she's like, 4. And he's like, whoa. And she's like, wait a minute, is that a lot? And he's like, no, I want 10. And then she starts laughing like, you're crazy. Anyways, they're sightseeing, and this old guy sits down next to them and is like, how long have you guys been married? And Eric just goes crazy, and he's like, he called it, and is kissing all over Rachel, and she's like, we're just dating right now. So after that, there was, of course, this hot tub, because hot tubs just come out of nowhere on The Bachelorette and Bachelor. And she's like, do you want to get in the hot tub? And nobody turns the hot tub down.
He's like, I didn't even know there were places like this that you could do that.
So they get into the hot tub, like just out in front of all these people, and there's like other hot tubs of people sitting in them. And there were like 3 or 4 other men and a different one right next to them. And this one guy stands up, butt naked, and just is screaming something. I don't know what he's saying. And Rachel is dying. And she's like, okay, Eric, it's your turn. And he's just like, he just kind of laughed that off and moved on. But after that, it cuts back to the hotel where there's another date card.
Right, so this would be the group date of the episode, and the people on the card were Dean, Kenny, Brian, Alex, Matt, Peter, and Adam, which means Will is left, so he's getting a one-on-one date.
So then after that, it goes back to their date, and they are now at an amusement park.
The date was really cute.
Oh my gosh. They looked like they had so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing bumper cars and all the little games that they have going out, like shooting baskets, and then they're on the Ferris wheel.
Yeah. We saw like a really nice side of Eric that we really haven't seen yet. And it was nice to see him just like having fun and being happy.
Not so worried about everything.
Yeah, because he's been like really worried the whole time that she's like not even into him.
Okay, so after they have like this great time at the amusement park, they go and have dinner. And at the dinner, they talk more about each other and their backgrounds. And Eric was saying how, you know, when he was younger, he was very smart. He was kind of like a cool square, he called himself.
Yeah, he didn't get into a lot of trouble or anything.
But he said when he was younger, he just didn't have that love within, like, the family.
Yeah, he said especially from his mother, he didn't get a lot of, like, affection and love from her, which explained a ton of his insecurities.
Yeah.
Like, I got it after that.
Yeah, and we're like, oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
So
I definitely liked Eric after this date.
Yeah.
It changed my opinion of him. I'm glad that we got to have that side of him, because sometimes the producers, you know, they tweak it to make him look bad, but I think I like Eric now.
Yeah, it was definitely nice seeing that part of him. So he was saying how he didn't have that love from his mother, and so he didn't really know what love felt like. But he said that, you know, he thinks he's falling for her.
Mm-hmm.
He has feelings for her. After that comes the rose. Does he get it?
He does.
Of course. They had such a great time, and
They really connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he got the rose, so good for him. It was a really cute date.
Yeah, I love
So
that
much
date.
fun.
So next day is the group date, and all the guys are there, and I think they're like on a dock because they're about to get on like a Viking rowboat.
It's huge.
It's one of those boats that they're all doing it. Yeah.
Rowing.
So Brian seemed to be struggling a bit.
Poor Brian.
It was like falling. He couldn't grab it.
And the guy was like, who was instructing them, you know, row.
Yeah.
And it's like, he goes, pick it up. Row.
It was very funny. So after they got off the boat, they went to the main part of their date, which it was basically like a big circle where they were going to be wrestling, kind of like Vikings, and doing little activities. So of course the first thing they do is they get into like little Viking gear. The two guys that were running it were super funny, but all the guys are coming out in their Viking gear, and they're doing these little activities, like basically wrestling the entire time.
Because they had to kind of like push the other outside of the circle, and whoever was left.
Right, or like keep someone out of the circle as like a team. Poor Dean got that one. He's just like a little boy.
Oh my gosh, when they all got dressed up and they all come out and they're like, ah, we're Vikings.
Yeah, and Dean's like ah. Yeah.
Loved it.
So after they're done doing all the activities, they come down to two guys who have, I guess, fought the hardest, and
they're fighting for Rachel's hand.
Yeah. And it comes down to Kenny and Adam. So they're charging at each other like real hard. I mean, Adam's sword broke, and he just throws it aside, and he's like, okay. So
this is broken.
Yeah, they start like ramming with their shields, and they end up like falling on the ground, and they come back up, and you see that both of them are bleeding. So
right on their eyebrow.
Yeah, both of them. And so at some point, you know, it obviously hit them both. So Adam's got like a little butterfly stitch, and Kenny's getting cleaned up too. And it turns out that Kenny fought the hardest, so he's declared like the Viking king. Yeah, he's the wrestler. Of course he did.
Although Adam was doing pretty good at one point.
Yeah, he was getting it.
Yeah.
Without a sword.
And when he had to do something with Rachel, she was like holding like this greasy stick or whatever. The men had to pull it out of her hand, and whoever could get it out of her hand was the one she would marry.
Right. And he just like picked her on up.
Yeah. So he was just like, goes all in and just picks her up and is like, yep, it's done. She's mine.
Yeah, we saw a little bit more of Adam in this episode because we really haven't seen him. We see more Adam Jr. than we do of Adam.
Yeah.
But he's obviously made it this far, so I guess there's some sort of relationship between them. We just haven't seen it. Okay, so the after party. She has a few conversations in there that they show, which of course Brian is one of them, and they're talking basically like about their future. You know, she's like, you know, would your family accept me? And he's like, oh yeah.
So sad that that's even a question.
Yeah, I know. Like, it shouldn't be a question. But he said, no, they're, you know, if they know you love me, then they'll accept you. They're open. So they just talk a little bit about their future, because she's like, I live in one city, you live in another city. She's scared about that, but he's like, it's okay. You know, Brian's always there to comfort her. She also talks to Peter, which they always have like a serious conversation. She's like, can you just kiss me? So, you know, her conversations with Peter are always nice. While she's talking to the guys, it shows like a scene where Kenny and Matt are talking, and Kenny's kind of confessing to Matt how he's feeling a little sad being away from his daughter, as we've seen. You know, Matt gets it. He's like, you know, just kind of listening to Kenny vent. And then it shows Rachel and Matt talking, and Rachel's like, oh, how's Kenny? Because she probably saw him talking, and he's like, physically, he's okay. He said, emotionally, I'm not sure, you know, because
having a lot of issues.
Yeah, he's saying he's having a hard time. So Rachel takes this when she talks to Kenny, and she's like, you know, how are you doing? And he openly tells her, like, you know, it's been rough. I have been missing my daughter. And he also is telling her he's kind of sad about where him and Rachel are too.
Yeah, he wishes they were so much further along.
Yeah, because
where they should be.
He just assumes this far in there would be way farther along. And she kind of agrees with him. She's like, you know, I'm not sure where we're at, or that we're where we need to be. And she's like, I know that you're missing your daughter. And she's just very real with him, and they're both like mutually talking about this, and she decides maybe you need to go home. She talks about how she's dated a guy with kids before and how she knows how it is, and
it's hard being away from your kid.
Right, and they both, know that they like each other and that there's something there, but she does have a connection with a lot of guys that are further along, so, it's kind of good for the both of them to just call it quits right now.
It was
very bittersweet.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, it was just so sad because they both seemed to really enjoy themselves.
They were just getting there, just starting to like each other.
Starting to get there, and
Kenny's having a hard time, so it was for the best.
Yeah.
And they do show Kenny leaving and kind of FaceTiming his daughter, and he's like, I'm coming home. And he says, me and Rachel decided we like each other, but it's hard being away from you. And she's like, okay, well,
she said, I'm glad you made it this far.
Right. She's like, you got to do fun things. You got to go places. It's been nice, but she's glad he's coming home too. So it was good for everyone. After Kenny gets sent home, Rachel goes back to the guys and she's just telling them what happened. She just explains to them that he needed to go home, and it was tough, but she's gonna move on with the night, and Peter ends up getting the group rose.
So during the night, they had cut to a scene of Will talking with Eric. Will was saying how he, growing up, mostly dated white girls, because he was like, she's not my typical
type, I guess.
Yeah.
Just not what he's used to.
And they just cut away from that and go back to the night, and we're like, what was that all about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we find out on the one-on-one. So Will gets his one-on-one, and they go to Sweden. And there is where they're at this little cafe, and an older couple comes in and just sits down with them and just, is talking with them. And Rachel and Will asked how long they'd been married, and they'd been married for 35 years, and they were kissing each other and wanting Will and Rachel to kiss each other, and the old man's like, it's very important, that's very important.
Yeah.
And so they leave, and she's like, I want that. I want to be with somebody for 35 years and still be that in love.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody wants that,
right?
Yeah. But yeah, it was really sweet, really cute. So after that, they were, walking around, and they're holding hands, but that's it. And Rachel's like talking how, like in an interview style, saying how, he's not very touchy-feely with her. And Rachel is saying that she thinks something is missing because, they're just holding hands, and she says that's even a struggle just to hold hands.
Yeah,
and
she wants it to be like more romantic.
And at one point, they're standing on top of this beautiful castle looking at this beautiful, view. And they're, standing about, this far apart from each other and just looking. And you could see her kind of look over at him,
waiting for that moment,
She's like, this is a perfect time to be romantic and, just grab her, hold her, kiss her, say this is a wonderful date, this is just beautiful, can you believe it? Nothing. They're just staring into the space. And she's like, I don't know. So after that, it goes to them having dinner, and one of my notes is just not feeling it.
Yeah.
She's not feeling it. They talk about his dating experiences in the past, and she asked him about it, and he says, well, growing up, I lived in an area where it was predominantly white people, and my schools were always, predominantly white people, and so that was his type of girls, I guess. that's what he had to choose from, basically.
Yeah.
Is what he was getting at. And
slim picking.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, really? Me too. I grew up in the same situation. And she's like, but I dated mostly black men. That's where we were kind of like, oh, that comment before.
That's where it comes in.
This is where it comes in. She just wasn't feeling it. I mean, because he was talking about how when he's in a relationship, he's very physical and he's
very affectionate.
And she's sitting there and she's like, I'm not getting any of that. So she said things just seemed off. My tongue. So she said things just seemed off, and she didn't feel like she was wanted. And so Will didn't get a rose.
Yeah, so he was sent home.
He was sent home.
She was sending everybody home this week.
Left and right. She's like...
So after Will went home, it's time for our second rose ceremony. We actually get 2 in one episode. That's like not heard of.
No, we only get 1.
And Rachel is like especially emotional at this one. She's like already crying, like coming into the room, and she's like, this one's just really hard for me because, you know, it's getting down to like, I think there was like 7 guys.
She got rid of so many already.
Right, so it's really coming down to the wire. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be emotional. So she finally kind of gets herself together and she comes back in. Still obviously a little emotional though. The guys seemed concerned as well. So the people that are already safe are Peter and Eric because they had their dates. The rest that are safe this week and got a rose is Brian, Matt, Dean, and Adam, which means Alex went home, which was kind of surprising.
I thought Adam would go before Alex, but that's just
Yeah.
because we've seen more interactions with her and Alex and barely anything with Adam until this episode.
Right, we don't even see a lot of Matt either. Like, we're just now starting to see Adam and Matt. So, it was a little weird seeing Alex go home, but that's why she was so emotional, because she did feel something with Alex, but she decided, you know, she's further along with other people.
Then they showed scenes for the next episode next week.
So much crying is going to happen. She's getting really emotional during this stage because, you know, it's getting hard sending people home now. And trying to find that person she can spend the rest of her life with.
So it shows scenes from next week, and the guys are kind of like confronting her, you know, individually, not all at once, individually, about how she's starting to close up. And they show Dean, and he's like, you're really closing us out and you need to be open.
Yeah, it's hard to continue the relationship.
He's like, you're really shutting down, and they're all saying this, you know, she's, you know, shutting down and she's not letting people in anymore. I think it's just taking a toll on her, and it does seem to get so much harder throughout the season. Mm-hmm. So they're like, look, you have to let us in if this is going to work.
Hometown dates are coming up, so it certainly is going to start getting harder than it already is. We even see, like, further along, we see a first glimpse at the final rose. She looked confident at that point of who she wanted to be with, which is really nice because she is kind of emotional right now, but it does look like she's
very excited about who's at the end.
Yeah, she does look like she, you know, found the one that she really wants to be with. So
I hope so.
Looking forward to the rest of the season, although it's going to be a roller coaster, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, that's all we have for this week. If you are a fan of Big Brother, we are going to start a series on the channel kind of recapping those episodes as well, starting this week. So if you like Big Brother and you want to recap, stay tuned for that. But for Bachelorette, we will see you next week. Give this video a like if you enjoyed our recap.
We appreciate any comments you leave us in the comment section below.
Absolutely.
And you can subscribe if you like this and want more videos of The Bachelorette or Big Brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. We really
See you next
appreciate it. See
time.
you.